Hello, my friends. Hello, and welcome once again to Stately Vaughan Manor, where Roger and I have returned to talk about the slow death of mass market paperbacks. That's right, Roger. Our beloved friends, the mass market paperback, will soon be no more. If the reports that we've been receiving here at the Manor are to be believed, these things, which have been disappearing for a long time, this is a format that's been dying for a while. But if what we're hearing is true, then, very soon these things will be gone entirely, at least in the United States. We've been hearing that the last distributor of mass market paperbacks in the United States has decided to no longer distribute them, which means that they will vanish altogether from bookstores and every place else you could get them. Which is kind of a sad thing for those of us who love this particular format. But these books, this type of book, it's been disappearing for a while. The writing has been on the wall for mass market paperbacks for quite some time. I think it was 2 years ago, actually, that I made a video lamenting the death of mass markets. The inevitable death of mass market paperbacks as a format. And now it looks like we are close to that dark day. And yeah, it is kind of sad for those of us who love these little books. At one time, these books ruled the bookstores. I well remember the days of going into a bookstore and finding the shelves packed full of these. Depending on where you got your books, most of the books in a bookstore could be mass market paperbacks because they were that popular. Also, these things were sold everywhere. Drugstores, convenience stores, all over the place. There'd be racks of paperback books. Because this was a revolutionary format. This format allowed people who could not afford hardcovers to buy books cheaply. These were cheap. And just as important, these were portable. They're a small enough format that you can easily put them in your pocket or your purse and just carry them around wherever you go. And for busy working people, that was very important. And that was one of the appeals of this type of book. And the covers were glorious. I mean, look at that. That's awesome. But over the years, of course, the sales of this type of book, the sales have been declining. The demand has lessened and has now pretty much vanished, really. And so, yeah, they're going to be gone very soon. So if we're talking about mass market paperbacks, we probably should hold up a book with a Frazetta cover. So I will just hold up this one because this one is awesome. Look at that. But it was inevitable that these would decline because of technology. This type of book, like I said, the main point of this type of book, or the main convenience of this type of book, was that it was cheap and portable. Over time, these books became less cheap. They became much more expensive than they should have been. And so if you were going to buy a book at a bookstore, the appeal as far as the price point was concerned, suddenly, it became less of a deal. Because to be honest, as a format, as a book format goes, these books have a lot of things that are not great. They're frail. They're just pages glued together, very often in a very cheap way. So a lot of the older mass market paperbacks you find could be falling apart. Sometimes the pages just fall right out of the covers. We see a lot of that with older mass markets. And as a reading experience, it wasn't terrible, particularly for those of us who are used to it, but not the best. It certainly can't compete really to the experience of reading something like this, which is what you'll find in the bookstores now. This is bigger, less portable, but it's more durable and it provides you with a frankly better reading experience. It's more expensive, but it might be worth more of an expense to get what is frankly a better book. If you're going to get a physical book, this is probably a better book. Yes, the covers of modern books suck, but the covers of all modern books tend to suck nowadays. Unlike the glorious days of the mass markets, which is one of the things I will miss the most about these. It's just the variety and the beauty and the imagination of so many of these mass market book covers. They offered so much glorious artwork. And yeah, book covers now and for a while have just really started to suck. Because now they're selling books not just in the bookstores, but they're selling a lot of books online to people looking at books on their phone, you know. So you have to you have tiny little pictures that you're looking at. And so book publishers tend to put boring, easily recognizable things on the book covers like sword hilts or axes or flowers or something like that with the text of the author and the title huge and covering most of the book space. Covers like this, they're rare nowadays. It's only going to get worse with AI generated book covers, which publishers will start to use because it costs nothing. And AI art, of course, does not really exist, Roger. There is no such thing as AI art. There's only AI imitation art. Art can only, of course, be produced by human beings. AI produces imitation art. And we're going to be getting a lot more of that on book covers, unfortunately. Enough of that rant, Roger. But it is true. The covers of these old mass markets were just awesome. I mean, look how cool that is. That's just cool. And look at this. Look how awesome that is. It's great old Western paperback with super cool art. I mean, look at that. You just can't do better than some of these old mass market paperbacks. And so that is one of the things I have missed for a while and will continue to miss with the mass market format is just the glorious covers. However, you know, things change. And this isn't the first time, of course, that this kind of thing has happened as far as a beloved reading format just vanishing. Remember these? Probably not, because you're probably not old enough, but you at least know about them. These are the beautiful pulp magazines that used to exist in vast quantities, that used to be a very, very popular way to read. You know, the newsstands were full of these glorious magazines, but eventually they died out. This format vanished. Again, they had some wonderful covers. This is Famous Fantastic Mysteries. This is the issue that reprinted The Ancient Allen by H. Rider Haggard with this great, great cover. These were awesome, the pulp magazines, but they died. And one of the reasons that they died was because of these things, mass market paperbacks. And now the mass market paperback is dying. And it's understandable why they are. Because, you know, their main advantages, they were cheap and portable. Eventually, they became a lot less cheap, and the portability became less of an advantage because of things like this. This is, of course, a Kindle. That's the Drowning Pool. You can't tell because it's so dark, but this is The Drowning Pool by Ross McDonald on this e-reader here, this little Kindle e-reader, which apparently I only have as an ebook, Roger. That kind of surprised me. But these are more portable, a good deal more portable than mass market paperbacks. Because, you know, you're not just carrying one book, you're carrying, you know, you could carry hundreds or thousands of books in something like this. And this is even easier to put in your pocket or your purse. And ebooks, not all of them, but a lot of them can be pretty cheap. So the advantage of the portability of a book of a mass market and the advantage of the price point of a mass market have been beaten by these. That bothers a lot of people who love the old mass markets, but it's also the truth. And also, the reading experience on one of these is at least as good as a mass market, if not better. That's just, again, the truth. No matter how much you might love old mass market paperbacks, the text could be small, and these offer you the chance to make the text bigger, to change the font. You just have more advantage. There are a lot more advantages with something like this. Of course, some people just will continue to love print books over these, but a lot of those people are perfectly happy to buy a bigger trade paperback, because they'll be getting a more durable book and a book that's easier to read. Or perhaps even a hardcover, something that will last a bit more than perhaps a trade paperback will. And so unfortunately, these were always, they were always doomed to die as soon as a better format came along. But there are so many things that I will miss about these, the endless, like I said, the endless variety of the cover art, the stories. There's so much that was great about these. A lot of the stories that you will find in some moldering old mass markets have never been made available as ebooks. And so a lot of stories and a lot of books are just going to kind of vanish as a lot of these older mass markets, kind of die out. Not this one, because this is Roger Zelazny, and this one you can get it as a new book. I'm 99% sure you can get a new ebook of this, The Dream Master. But a lot of books, that's going to be the case. And it's always sad to see something that you love disappear. And yeah, these have been disappearing for a while. And I mean, I could still read The Lord of the Rings, and there are like 1 million editions, but my favorite edition of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit will always be this one. These wonderful mass market books. This will always be my favorite. Even though, yeah, I've got the big hardcover. I could get an ebook of The Lord of the Rings, but this is my favorite and always will be. It's kind of a sad thing, and I'm sorry that they're going. It's too bad. But reading goes on, and books will survive. So that's all I have to say about that, Roger. I will catch you next time. Not tomorrow, because unfortunately my schedule has changed, and so I can't do a video tomorrow like I normally would. Oh well, I'll see you when I can. Bye.